This is Zestology, the podcast all about energy, vitality and motivation. It's the new rules of health, coming to you from central London on a very blustery, wintry day. I've got my big fluffy microphone cover on, which isn't a euphemism, microphone cover on, and I'm getting some strange looks for it, to be honest, but hopefully that means you can't hear the wind. That's why I bought it, and it's one of my favourite gadgets, so if you can, then it's not working properly. Now, coming up in today's podcast, how you can improve your eyesight naturally. You don't necessarily need to wear glasses. That's the message from today's podcast. And right at the end of the podcast, one of the world's best longevity hacks. So that's coming a little bit later on, but before that, Greg Marsh is a natural eyesight genius. I always used to pride myself on my eyesight. I always used to think, yeah, I've got good eyes. But recently, in my 40s, they're going downhill, I tell you. I mean, let's be honest, as we get older, they don't work quite as well as they used to. And I seem to, from my recent eyesight test, have a little bit of astigmatism, and one eye is a little bit dimmer than the other. So I thought, well, do you know what? I don't really want to wear glasses yet. I'm not quite ready to take that step, but I would like to know a little bit more about it. So I contacted Greg Marsh, one of the world's leading experts on sorting out your eyesight naturally. And it's pretty much over to Greg. He's awesome in this area, and I think you will be quite surprised by some of his approaches today. You can find Greg on YouTube or check out his website as well, which is the same as the title of this podcast, A Better Eyesight Now. Simple, really. Here he is, Greg Marsh on Zestology. Can you make our eyesight better?
Absolutely, yes.
That is very good news, because I've always fancied myself a bit with eyesight, and just recently I've noticed it's not what it was. It's quite dramatically declined, to the extent that if I'm reading a newspaper in dim light, it's quite hard to read it now. And I've thought, there must be a natural way of sorting it out, which is why I found you. So, I suppose that's something that a lot of people go through as they get a little bit older. I'm in my 40s now, so it's probably not I'm probably not the only person to feel like that about my eyesight.
Well, one of my favorite ideas is that we live in an ocean of beliefs, and that people are so convinced. Like, if you ask somebody in their 40s, like yourself, do you use reading glasses? If they don't use them, usually rather than say no, they'll say not yet.
Yeah.
And my feeling is we've all been hypnotized to have our eyes fail. Now, when you're a child, you can see better up close than when you're an old adult. So there is a natural process that the lens, well, it literally grows larger. It puts on layers like an onion, and it grows larger. Well, what the eye doctor says is you have a rock-hard frozen lens. It's too big. It can't flex. It can't see. But anybody who gets interested in these approaches can improve their eyesight and probably get out of reading glasses altogether. And that's just one corner. My doorway was nearsightedness. Some people have good success even with cataracts or glaucoma.
Yeah. So it's part of it is just we expect our eyesight to get worse, so it does. And presumably, once we start wearing glasses, is that not very good for our eyes? Because it means you kind of just relax and you're not even trying.
It's kind of like, see, we have a whole different belief on legs. If somebody has a leg injury, they might use a crutch for a while, or they might even use a wheelchair, or they might even use a brace. But their idea from the get-go is, I want to use this brace as little as possible. I want to get back on my feet. And the thing that's most helpful is that person's belief and the medical profession's belief that they will get back on their feet. So they do.
And that is where, presumably, exercise comes in.
Yeah, and exercise is a tricky word I actually kind of minimize that word when I'm talking about eyesight, because for a lot of people, exercise is like, well, I'm going to go to the gym, I'm going to work out, I've been lazy, I've been flabby, I'm going to toughen everything up. But eyes are almost kind of the opposite of this. If you think right now, like maybe even somebody listening could close their eyes for a moment, and now just imagine the eyes could be really relaxed, and now go the other direction. And even though this is torture for a moment, it'll be instructive. Pretend that you can really tighten all those muscles in your eyes. And you can feel that, right, Tony?
Yeah, I'm doing it now.
Okay,
Yeah,
well,
yeah.
notice as you tighten those muscles in your eyes, it's also tightening muscles in your neck, your shoulders, all the way down your arms. Maybe you even notice it in your little toe, maybe in your chest, maybe in your belly. Okay, now let it go. Let it go more. Let it go more. Let it go more. And now just open your eyes and blink a little bit. And a lot of people, even just from that much, will notice they see more clearly, or that there's more ease in what they see.
Yeah, I remember using a technique for a while called progressive muscle relaxation, which was a little bit similar to that, where you
I
would, yeah,
absolutely adore that. When it was big back in I know in the early 80s it was big, maybe even in the 70s. I totally was thrilled with that. I use it a lot myself. And I guess I just did.
yeah, you
Because I
did,
said,
yeah,
I
yeah.
said, tighten your muscles and then let them go.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, I noticed when I was doing a little bit of research into you, Greg, that you are into kind of hypnotherapy and EFT, and my background is kind of NLP and hypnosis. And I certainly think that
Right.
progressive muscle
Yeah.
relaxation, when you would squeeze certain parts of the body and then relax them, that's actually very hypnotic, because you're going in and out of this kind of trance state that leaves you more relaxed than when you started. So I quite like that.
Yeah. Well, I like the analogy of a car that's stuck in the mud or stuck in the snow. And if the person just goes back, if the person just tries to go forward, they're never going to get out. But then if they start backing up, actually going the wrong direction, and then forward, and then back, and then forward, then all of a sudden, boom, they're out of it. And I think the mind and the muscles and beliefs and a whole bunch of things work that way. And I'm probably preaching to the choir.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, definitely. But listen, the fact is, you might be preaching to the choir, but your area of expertise is something that we are desperate to take advantage of. And I know that you describe yourself as having been extremely nearsighted. So what happened with your eyesight? How did you change your eyesight?
Well, I thought I was kind of alternative. I was, a conservative kid in a conservative town in a conservative situation. My dad was a chemical engineer. I became a chemical engineer. And, as you hear all that, you can feel, the person trying to tighten down and control the world and understand it in a real, like, Newtonian kind of way. And man, I was there. And I got pretty nearsighted. And then it wasn't until my late 20s, I thought I was kind of alternative, actually, for an engineer. But I was in a bookstore and I came across one of several books that existed back then about the Bates method. And it was in a bargain bin. So, oh man, I got to pick this up and look at it. And it actually offended me. I thought, as a chemical engineer, I thought I knew everything. And the fact that I didn't know that you could improve your eyesight, it was BS. This can't be true. So I walked around the bookstore and I kept, that's stupid, So finally I made a deal with myself. I'll buy this book, but my reason in buying it is so that I can read it and find out where it's wrong and where it's trying to mislead people. But by the time I was on about page 3 or 4, I was hooked for life. And the Bates, this is all founded around a Dr. William H. Bates.
Yeah.
And what Dr. Bates found was that people who were nearsighted or with other vision problems used their eyes differently. They tended to stare and they tended to strain. And like a moment ago when we were tightening the eyes and found that, the neck is tight, the shoulders are tight, the arms are tight, the rib cage is tight. Well, that seems to be what makes vision blurry. Is now if you imagine the eyes, and they're getting literally contorted by all these tight or these big muscles that operate the eyes. So now the muscles might squeeze one way and they make the eyeball too long, which is nearsightedness, or in the UK you would say short-sightedness, I guess. And then every which way you might have astigmatism, which would be all the muscles all kind of fighting each other. So that's, let's see now what question? What question?
Yeah, no, that's so. Well, you were talking about how with the Bates, you started to use the Bates method yourself, and
right.
in your late 20s, did your eyesight go from being kind of very nearsighted to much improved?
It did, but not until I discovered the emotional doorway. And what happened was, this is before the internet, so I was using books in print to find books. I went to the amazing Powell's bookstore in Portland, Oregon, and I would look, and there would always be a new book I hadn't found yet. And so, I was just learning everything that I could.
Yeah.
And I had gotten from the key Bates techniques, which are palming. Here we'll do the 1 second version, where you just put your palms over your eyes.
Okay.
And, knowing that your palms are a minor chakra center, and knowing that, Reiki works, and knowing all these things. But maybe even Bates just talked about excluding the light and giving your eyes a break.
Okay.
So you do that for a moment, and, you might even lean forward and put your elbows on a desk or a stack of pillows or cushions from the sofa. But now you uncover your eyes and you already notice things might be a little more clear.
Well, that's I think they are. Yeah.
Good. It's working.
Wow.
So that's kind of the signature Bates techniques that everybody's heard of, is palming. And then now, as things start to get a little more clear, you notice another thing. Part of relaxation is movement. So if you even just sway back and forth a little bit, there's something really nice about this. Okay, so this is relaxation and movement, which the more you fall into Bates, kind of like a lot of other things, the more you realize that relaxation can't exist without movement. So you start getting fascinated with, well, wow, I'm staring at my computer all day. What's the antidote? So it's movement. So for me personally, I was doing the palming. I was doing what's called sunning, which is with closed eyes, looking towards the sun. But I lived in Oregon. You live in London.
Yeah.
And there's not that much sun.
No, there's not.
So a bright incandescent light works. And what happens is it might feel intense at first through the closed eyelids, but very quickly the eyes figure out how to relax and start to love it. Well, now we've got a whole nother thing, which is a whole nother program that you'll have with somebody else who's an expert on lighting. But now it's like you go, well, do I really want to use an LED light for eye health?
Yeah.
And the answer probably is no, but I'm optimistic that there will be good answers. Okay, so this is me.
So your eyes now, are they pretty good?
They're pretty good. I'm still a work in progress, because it's kind of like, if somebody becomes extremely obese, and then they lose all their weight. I don't know why I'm using that example.
No, it's a good metaphor. Yeah.
Then, their skin might still remember a little bit what it was like. But, like if a kid grows up on a farm or out in the mountains, and they're always looking in the distance, and they teach themselves to notice the difference between an eagle and a hawk and all that. That kid is going to grow up with rather than 20/20 vision, is going to have 20/10 or maybe even 25. And those are the kind of kids that wind up being attracted to being a sharpshooter or a pilot in the Air Force or something like that. So anyway, these are the things I was doing, and they were kind of working. And then I got into I read a book. It was called Visionetics, and it was very into the emotional part. Have you heard of Wilhelm Reich, Tony?
No.
Wilhelm Reich was, a German, but he was in the U.S. and he had a cadre of people following him. And this was in the 1950s. And, he talked a lot about muscular armature. And you can kind of feel that, if you tighten the eyes again, tighten the shoulders again, tighten the rib cage again, tighten the digestive area again. It's like if a person lives like that 24/7, they're going to become ill, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. And eyesight, everybody's wired differently, but for some people, that illness might be poor eyesight.
So what you do with clients, is there an element, I know you don't always want to use the word exercises, but is there an element of kind of training the eye to kind of focus differently as well as relaxation? Because I didn't expect you to talk about that at all. I'm fascinated by it, but surely there's some kind of training as well.
Absolutely. So like right now, you're mainly concerned about close vision, right?
Yeah, I suppose so. Yeah, just in general, like one eye seems a lot better than the other.
Okay.
Yeah.
And which eye is less?
My
better?
right eye isn't as good, and it feels like it's just not as good at any distance, really.
Yeah. Okay. So, yeah, we'll take your right eye.
Yeah.
And this is a pretty easy thing to follow. Just tell me to stop if I get too complicated. My engineer gene still it's in overdrive sometimes. But if you take your index finger of your right hand,
yeah,
and or whatever hand's free, I guess, and just kind of roll it down, roll your index finger all the way down into your palm, all your skin wrinkles, and you can kind of create a tiny little hole to look through. Would you agree?
Yes.
Okay. Now take that hole, make it pretty small, and now put it like right up against your eye, almost against your eyeball.
Okay, yeah, I'm doing that now, yeah.
And now when you look through, now hold up your finger or something printed that you can't normally see. In fact, take that, we'll call it a pinhole, take it away for a minute and look at a book or a magazine. Do you have something handy?
Yeah.
Okay. And now continue holding that close, but now look through the little hole, the little pinhole you've created, and you'll find you can see it quite clearly.
It's much better. Yeah. It's way better.
It's way better, yeah.
Yeah.
And then there's a device called pinhole glasses a lot of people find helpful. Some people even find they can use them as training wheels with no other technique besides just the pinhole glasses. They're glasses. Have you seen them before?
No, I haven't.
They're glasses. They're opaque, plastic, black lenses, but then they have a lot of little holes. When they mold them, they put a lot of little holes. There's probably, I don't know how many, maybe 50 holes in each one.
Yeah.
And what you do is you find yourself looking through this little hole. Well, once you do that, you're doing something called centralizing, which is a Bates technique. You're using your central vision, which loves to be used. And it's like the opposite of staring at the whole world and trying to conquer everything at once. So this is, I probably don't want to go too much into centralizing because it can get kind of tricky. But just for now, now look again through that little hole.
Yeah.
And that's very heartening and encouraging, right?
Mm.
Because you realize this is just my eye. I'm just doing this.
You know what it seems like? It just seems a bit sharper through that little hole.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that's really weird.
Good. Okay, so now take that and here, let's ease our way into a technique. Obviously, one of the techniques was the palming we just did. Would you agree?
Yes, yeah.
Or you could use the word exercise, but maybe you're starting to see why sometimes I avoid the word exercise because somebody thinks, oh yeah, I got to really work out. I got to really push my eyes. But now maybe you're already sensing, no, my eyes have been working way too hard and I need to help them relax. But exercises, it's true. That's what we're doing.
Yeah.
But I like to call them techniques or vision.
It makes it. You want to encourage people to think of it as fun and easy as possible, don't you? Really?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So now here's a riddle. Let's say that you have a crying baby.
Okay.
And now somebody hands you this crying baby. And at first you're like freaking out, going, what am I supposed to do? And you're just rigid, right? But what do you start to do?
You start to soothe the crying baby and maybe rock them a little bit or just kind of make them feel more relaxed.
Okay, so the rocking, you can already feel yourself rocking the baby, right?
Okay.
Okay, well, this is the same.
You're hypnotizing me again, aren't you?
All right, yeah. So you're rocking the baby, and something in you is constantly seeking what's the right way to rock, what's the right way to move. Well, see, this baby is a metaphor for the eyes. The eyes have been frozen with, who knows what's going on with the baby. Maybe it's in pain, maybe it's hungry, and you don't know. But there's something soothing, and now the baby's not crying anymore, right?
Right.
So you're really doing the same thing with your eyesight. In fact, you might even say with your mind, because the mind and the eyes can get really stressed out just staring at a computer or even just walking rigidly down the street. So one of the things Bates discovered, the first thing he discovered is that staring and straining causes the eyes to get blurry. But then he had to experiment, and he did this. He was an ophthalmologist. He was teaching ophthalmology. And he experimented with some of the students in his class. And what he found was a handful of techniques that would help them relax and move and kind of get their eyes going again. And so this swaying was a big one. The palming was a big one. Another one that's kind of one of the most famous techniques, sunning, like I mentioned too.
Yeah.
And then another very famous Bates technique is just now take the swaying. Are you standing or sitting right now?
I'm sitting at the moment. Okay,
so you can do it either sitting or standing, but is it convenient to stand up?
Yeah, no problem.
Okay.
Yeah. Okay.
Okay.
Yeah.
So stand up.
Yeah.
And now just kind of sway back and forth, swaying onto the left foot, onto the right foot.
Okay.
The one foot and then the other foot. And there's something very soothing about the swaying.
Yeah.
I mean, really, this is what EMDR is. The EMDR stands for eye movement desensitization and relaxation or something like that.
Okay, yeah.
But basically, that's what EMDR is. It's like you're going back and forth. So now, if you want to do the official Bates long swing,
yes,
which is even is a little more rewarding, or might be, is now as you're swaying to the left, turn your hip a bit to the left. And then as you're swaying to the right, turn your hip a bit to the right.
Okay.
A lot of people, at first their instinct is to sway at a speed like this, left, right, left, right, left. But it's a lot more relaxing to your eyes. And it kind of draws on some principles of yoga, I think, that if you just go a little slower, like one way.
Yeah.
The other way.
Yeah, it's nice.
One way, the other way. And so your eyes already know they're going to land and look there. And then they go across and they just kind of let go of everything in the distance. And then they land the other way. and then they kind of let go across, and then go the other way. And now as you relax, you may find your eyes are blinking a lot. Do you find that?
I may find my eyes what?
Blinking
Uh,
as they relax, as
yeah, oh
they
yeah.
let
Now that
go.
I've sat down, yeah. A little bit more than normal, definitely. Yeah.
Yeah, and blinking is a kind of movement, and it's just one of the nourishments the eyes really need. They really need to blink. And so now if you hold up that book that you were looking at, or paper or whatever before, and just keep yourself swaying, keep yourself blinking,
Yeah.
you'll notice already that it's getting a little bit more clear.
Yeah.
And sometimes it'll pop out just for a moment, and most people like to call these flashes of clarity, kind of little hints. But the thing is, the eyes, going back to where should we go with this? I don't know. That's a little bit of the technique doorway, right?
Yeah. It does seem a little bit clearer though. I've sat down now because I wasn't very close to the microphone, but yeah, it definitely. It's just so interesting because I did not know that you would be taking us down this avenue in the interview. And actually, I downloaded an app a couple of months ago, and it's kind of an app which is designed to help you with your eyesight. I think it's called Glasses Off or something like that. And
That's a good
yeah,
app.
is it?
And the thing is, now when you reflect on it, especially based on what we've just been doing, now you'll realize, wow, that app, although I might have strained to try and accomplish what it's trying to make me accomplish, that app is actually a pathway to relaxation.
Right. Yeah, because
to really succeed with that app, you have to relax.
Yeah. You have to
And a lot
relax,
of people,
and you
and a
can
lot of
only
people,
focus
sorry.
on one thing at once, can't you? I mean, if you're thinking about anything else at all, you won't do it right.
Well said. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah. So there's a lot of different original Bates techniques, and then there's more modern techniques. NLP, there's the famous story that somebody who was fairly nearsighted, the NLP practitioner regressed that person back to an age when their eyesight was perfect. And then when they brought him back, they kind of, hypnotized him, sweet talked him into, okay, well, when you come back to the present, bring that clarity with you. And that supposedly worked. I've never met that person, but I understand that's true.
Wow. Okay, so your programs kind of use an adapted Bates method.
Right. It's completely, absolutely Bates centered.
Yeah.
And a lot of people like to, like if you go on quackwatch.com, which is the most joyless person in the world, put that together. But if you go on, things like that, somebody who wants to detract from Bates, well, people who want to detract, they can detract from anything. You'd probably agree with that. Yeah.
I would, but I certainly think the theories of being able to improve your eyesight naturally, I absolutely buy into that. And it's always struck me the fact that, you don't kind of work out your eyes. And I know you aren't calling it exercises, but all these things, all these techniques are actually focusing on helping the eyes rather than just accepting. And just going back to that question about glasses, there'll be a lot of people listening to this right now wearing glasses right now. What do you think? I mean, obviously some people just have to wear glasses because they won't be able to see properly, or they won't be able to drive safely otherwise. But what do you think about glasses in terms of improving your eyesight?
Oh, one thing, since you mentioned glasses, anybody who's listening to this and wearing glasses probably already took them off. But if you haven't, it might be useful. And if, somebody's listening to a recording, they might even want to stop it and take out their contact lenses. too.
Okay.
But as far as glasses, let's go back to the leg brace. Let's say, and glasses are done in diopters. For reading glasses, they're like +1, +2, +3. And for nearsightedness or short-sightedness, they're like -1, -2, -3. But let's go back to the leg brace. So it's like you injured your leg. You have every faith that it's going to come back, but right now it kind of hurts and you can't put your weight on it. So you have this brace, and you go to the doctor, and the doctor goes, I'm going to give you a number 4 brace. Well, secretly, you want to go to the -3 as soon as you can, right?
Yeah.
Because it's going to make you trust in your leg more. It's going to make your leg come around more. It's going to give your leg more to do. So, but then what if you went back into the leg doctor, and the leg doctor says, ooh, we're going to have to put you up to a -6.
Mm-hmm.
And the thing is, that's the belief system that we have about eyes. So if somebody is always correcting to the absolute max, then it's like wearing that leg brace that you never wanted to wear. So you're right. Part of the dance then is, what do you do about glasses? Well, obviously, see, some eye doctors, if they can get like 20/20 with a -4 prescription, but then, wow, if we turn the tourniquet a little tighter, wow, if we add another diopter, we might be able to get this person to see 20/10. Well, now you can see why that's kind of a sin, right?
Yeah, yeah.
Because now what you're doing is you're torturing this poor eyes even more.
Yeah.
So part of the dance in improving eyesight is getting reduced glasses.
Right.
So
to reflect your improvement as you go.
Well, to reflect it and to hasten it also.
Yeah. Right. Okay. Yeah. Yeah.
So like in the U.S. and I think in most states and in other countries, I think most countries, 2040, or I don't know, in this 6.6 in the meters, I'm not sure what that would go to, but if you can see 2040 without glasses or with glasses, then you're legal to drive. And so if a person is wearing, let's say -4 glasses, odds are if they go down to a -3, they're still going to feel safe and be legal for driving. Now, they might want to keep around their strongest glasses for when they're driving at night or when they're driving someplace they don't know, so they feel safe. But as long as they're legal and feel safe, they might be able to run most of their life with -3 glasses. So now if they do that, plus they're doing these techniques, or I'll obligingly call them exercises for anybody who prefers to call them that.
Yeah.
But so you can see how that's part of the dance. Going without glasses for a few minutes a day, like somebody might go, oh man, I need my glasses for everything. And then you ask them, do you really need your glasses to brush your teeth? So you can start kind of teasing oneself and go, well, what do I really need my glasses for?
Yeah.
And the more time you can go without glasses or with under-corrected glasses, the more, just like the leg brace, it's like you're bringing the leg back. You're bringing the eyes back. So.
Wow. Yeah. Okay. Well, I'm going to be looking into this a lot more and start using glasses off again, because I basically stopped using it. I thought I'll just wait until I interview you and then I'll work it out from there. What is something I'll ask everyone is, what is one book that you would recommend and one tip for living with more energy, vitality, and motivation?
My favorite cross-training book. Have you ever heard of John Sarno?
No.
He did with back pain what Bates did with eyesight.
Oh, wow. Okay.
So think about this. This is a man, he died just a couple years ago at age 93. This man was a genius, and he was a beautiful man. I never met him, but I met several people who got their lives back by just listening to this man talk. He did thousands of back surgeries, thousands. And then he kind of stood back and he went, darn it, this is a placebo. Back surgery is a placebo. I did this for this person and they should have felt fine and they didn't. This other person, it shouldn't have worked and it did. And he finally realized he felt that virtually all back surgeries were a placebo. So can you see how that's kind of like Bates?
I do, yeah.
And I mentioned that he's written 4 books, and I read his first book. I'd been rear-ended in a car accident, and I was in not terrible pain, but some pain for about 6 months. And I just read his book called Mind Over Back Pain. It was his first book. It was fairly simple, and it was basically Bates' principles aimed at the back. And my back pain of 6 months just disappeared. So I got this book. It was only $3.50 back then. And I got a bunch of copies and I gave it to a lot of my friends. And of course, some of them say, oh, my back's different, you know. Well, they didn't read the preface, you know. But that's how it always is, right?
And what was that particular book?
That particular book by John Sarno, Sarno, was called Mind Over Back Pain.
Okay, wow. Okay.
But then he wrote 3 more, and he got more. He actually got a little Freudian for my taste towards the end. But this man was a genius, and he helped a lot of people return from hell, and sometimes very quickly.
Okay,
so there's my cross-training book.
Yeah, that's great. And what about one tip for living with more energy and vitality? That's the kind of theme of this podcast. What would you say to that?
Well, you know, the Bates method has been my centerpiece. And I would say the key is to notice, like especially at the computer, are you frozen? Just flick the switch, the switch that says I am frozen. Switch it the other direction that says I am moving. And even if it's just swaying a little bit, even if just blinking a little bit, and in 1 minute, life will completely change.
Yeah. And it's very interesting because I've long thought the reason that I did this podcast is, and actually you might be quite interested in this in relation to what we talked about with eyes. I got a virus about 5 years ago, and had all sorts of kind of strange symptoms that came and went, and some I kind of still have. And one of them was I started getting. I was in the jungle in the Philippines. I got this kind of tropical virus, basically. And the doctors didn't really know what it was because there's a lot of viruses in the jungle that the doctors just haven't. They know that they exist, but they don't have a name for them. And one of the side effects that I had was getting numb patches on certain parts of my face, especially on my kind of forehead. And as all the other symptoms went down, I still kind of get that occasionally. I'm just really used to it now, although it was a very odd and scary sensation when I first got it. And one of the things that I did, spending many hours, probably far too many hours, Googling at the time when I was ill and I was off work for 3 months and had these numb patches everywhere, was I read about the fact that a lot of people, when they've got tension in the neck, will get numb patches in the face and different parts of the body. So what?
That makes sense.
Yeah. And is there a relation between tension in the neck and eyesight as well?
Absolutely, 1,000%. Yeah, and see, here's a pet belief of mine, is that, was it more your right eye that was affected?
My right eye, yeah.
Yeah. So even just close your eyes for a moment.
Yeah.
And if this is still part of the recording, you know, somebody else could apply this to their own thing.
Oh, it is still part of the recording, yeah.
But now if you close your eyes and now imagine your right eye this is just my own little pet thing. Imagine your right eye, and this could be somebody who's starting to get a cataract or something too. And it's like the eye went through some turmoil. Almost everybody that I meet with that newly has cataract or newly has glaucoma, if I ask them, did you have a period of strain in your life, stress, anguish, disappointment, right, in the few months or years right before you were diagnosed with this thing? And some will say no, but even those people, usually if they think about it more, they'll say yes. It was a difficult time. And now for your right eye, just think of how anguished it was and how sad it was and how scared it was. And so, and this might be easier to imagine if you close your eyes and just maybe with palming, just talk to your eye and say, oh, wow, that must have been really hard. And your eye, you can tell, it's like your right eye is already going, oh, thank you for noticing, and so then the muscles start to relax, the thoughts start to relax, the emotions start to relax, and now the right eye that was in a field of fear now is starting to feel coddled and loved and nourished, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, so
I just drifted off into another trance there, you see. This is your powerful...
All right.
Yeah.
What can I do here while I've got Tony under my spell? Yeah, but I adore, and I'm sure I'm preaching to the choir again too, but I just adore guided visualizations. I use them a lot. And I also do trainings for people that are interested in, I call it vision coaching. And people are really enthusiastic about guided visualizations, and just, everybody does it instinctively a little bit, but I think by following certain principles, it can be enhanced. And like you can imagine your right eye, and you could do this while you're palming, you could imagine it relaxing and relaxing and relaxing. And then you go, oh my goodness, all those tight muscles, all the oxygen couldn't even get into the eye. All the nourishment couldn't even get into the eye. And now that I'm relaxing it, now the circulation is getting much better. The blood's circulating through the eye. All the nutrients are getting delivered. All the oxygen is getting delivered. Yeah. Plus, on the slightly more cosmic level, then you can start imagining, there's stem cells always floating around the body, and they need a signal to go do what they do. And the adult stem cells that are already there, and you can just, with the visualization, you can even do that right now. Just envision that you're inviting stem cells from all over the body to come and congregate in the right eye. And they're so eager and they're so excited to help, because they can do anything, the nature of stem cells. And in a way, this is just imagination. But, like that movie, What the Bleep Do We Know, was so good at showing how imagination is the thing.
That's it. Thank you to Greg. Let me know how you get on with improving your eyesight naturally. I wouldn't say it's been radically different for me since I recorded this podcast, but at times I have seen a small improvement, so I'm definitely going to stick with some of Greg's techniques and stick with that app as well. Before you go, it'd be great if you would sign up to my 3 Zesty Things newsletter. You can head to TonyWrighton.com. It's TonyWrighton.com. Or if you just Google Zestology, you'll find my website, and sign up for the 3 Zesty Things newsletter. It's just a collection of energising and zesty links that have caught my eye over the previous week. Sometimes it's 3, sometimes it's a lot more than 3. And this week I put a link in about standing desks, which apparently aren't as good for you as they thought. What you really need to do is be moving around, which is exactly why I record this podcast out and about. You need to be moving around on a regular basis. If you're listening to this sitting down and you've been sitting down for the last hour, what you want to be doing, according to this research and according to all the longevity studies from the blue zone, is moving around. So get up, take 5 minutes, have a move around, and then come back and listen to another podcast. So links like that. Sometimes there'll be deals, sometimes there's pictures, sometimes there's other podcasts that I've enjoyed, books, all sorts going on. If you head to tonywrighton.com, you can sign up there and you'll get that every Monday. And that's it. Have a lovely week, full of movement, full of great eyesight, and I'll see you soon.